I speak here as a member of the RRI network and also as a teacher in Shiv Nadar University. And again, as somebody who's worked with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, basically looking at the agricultural sciences and the social construction of science for about 25 years. I make three points here. One is about this conference and what we came up with. The second part is about community and why community knowledge and participation. When we say participation, we generally mean participation of the community in our agenda and why we need to think of it differently. And the third point that I want to make is about soil and land and water and all our natural resources as public goods. That is, common pool resources which are out there as public goods, which we cannot understand with a very different approach to understanding this. And what is that approach? We'll get to that in a moment. So the RRI network has a kind of, well, it's a picture that we have where we loop knowledge, policy and practice as three, well, intersecting Venn diagrams. That is, they are one, connected to each other, but they also feed into each other. Because we are all so well, let's say, conveniently located in different aspects of this continuum, we generally don't see it. The farmer, unfortunately, or fortunately, is located in a situation where all three come together. And that is the farmer who knows their farming systems, that is where they are, what kind of context they face, the kind of, well, rainfall patterns, the frequency of rainfall, the intensity of rainfall, the soil types, all this has knowledge base and has a very rich knowledge base. Is also making decisions all the time. In other words, there's a policy integration that's already happening, and there is a practice that's always happening continuously, and they're always practicing things. What we found that there was 3 M's that really worked to bring about a set of what we call living soils, systems that would evolve on their own, would still have their ability to retain their, well, structure and function without getting destroyed. So the 3 M's were, one was soil moisture management, which was crucial, and you heard Rajiv speak about the relationship between soil and water. So there were many of these, well, civil society organizations and academic organizations' policy efforts which had actually facilitated soil moisture management. But none of this soil moisture management evidence was actually located within the ministries. That is, soil moisture, unfortunately, has been distorted in agriculture to irrigation. Irrigation is the supply of water. Irrigation is not soil moisture management. So soil moisture management is what Rainfed agriculture in this country or anywhere in the world has been doing for ages. The second M was soil microbes. That is, how do you keep soil microbes alive? And soil microbes, unfortunately, is not there as part of our soil health card system. And the third one, well, basically it was, these two are built on a set of, understandings and also the ability to build more on soil biomass. That is, how do you build soil biomass? Soil is not just a set of structures. Soil is actually a living system with a very active, breathing, living, well, functions that are going on. So how do you build these 3 M's? And luckily for us, when we presented to the Joint Secretary, she added a 4th M. She said, how about the 4th M, money? Because farmers won't do it if they don't get any income from this. So we went ahead and added that too. So what is the way in which we can actually bring in all these 4 M's to work for, well, living soils, the ability to go on, the strength, the resilience to build on every change and make further adjustments to adapt to change. That's been the strength of communities. That's my second point about getting the community involvement. Individuals and communities together make decisions across IV categories, whether it's farmers or whether it's as parents or whether it's as a set of, well, let's say Panchayat Raj institutions. They're always making decisions about individual decisions, but also about we categories. So there are ways in which community knowledge can be brought into the system. We're talking about a very, very thin and bare minimum public sector engagement in agriculture now. That is definitely not enough, especially if we're talking about natural resources and natural resource management, where communities can contribute a lot. Now, why is this community knowledge so important? We have to see how people are learning from the changes that they're living through, help them document it, and work with them. In other words, extend our, well, learning from and learning with communities. And that's something the RRI network is trying actively to do. But entrepreneurship is not something the state can supply. Entrepreneurship has to come endogenously from within the society. And there are plenty of opportunities for, well, natural resource management, soil management in particular, to create opportunities for entrepreneurship, ranging from a whole range of, well, inputs that can be created locally, not just as input supplied, but inputs that can be created endogenously within these communities and supplied to each other. John Augustus Volker's recommendation for the Organization of Indian Agricultural Science in 1893 talks about the first tier of organization of agricultural research as farmer-to-farmer learning. That is, how do you enable that? How do good farmers learn from each other? How do farmers who have not succeeded learn from other farmers? How do we enable this conversation? There needs to be public investment in this. Yeah? And that's something that we must reiterate. The third point that I have is about how it's important to get an understanding of soils and land as public goods. That is, they are not capital that we produced. Because of our private ownership of land, we are destroying something that nature has given us, that is not ours in the first place. You have people who understand complex relationships. They may not be able to explain it to you in well, let's say, scientific terms. We have divided ourselves into pillars, into small little subdisciplines of soil sciences, for instance. Complexity science, complexity studies brings us the ability to make these connections, to see how these linkages work. As a set of public goods out there, as a set of public, well, common resources that we've all inherited, how is our private interaction with them changing these things? What can we do to bring these, well, let's say, bring meanings that communities have back into play? What can we do to actually develop this? Our demand to the Joint Secretary, unfortunately she's left now, was that we help formulate a national policy on living soils. I sincerely hope this forum will take this up. Not as a policy that will prescribe guidelines and 12,000, 14,000 rupees per hectare, no, but as an overarching goal. This is where we want to see our soils. We want living soils. We want healthy living soils that will nourish us, that will keep us alive, keep the soils and their functions and other ecosystem services alive. That's an overarching goal. We have to think along agroecosystems and launch 100 pilots. That was our second demand to the Joint Secretary, saying the network said, give us 100 pilots. Let us work on 100 pilots where we can actually try out these 4 Ns, make them work. Let's learn from the failures. We're spending thousands of crores on, well, absolutely destructive things on soils. Why can't we spend 10% of that on something that is meaningful for soils and for communities? Thank you.